This is M100 to East Harlem 2nd Avenue 127th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 220th Street. Transfers available to BXM1, BXM2 and BX7. This stop is Broadway and West 220th Street. Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 214th Street. This stop is 10th Avenue and West 214th Street. Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 211th Street. This stop is 10th Avenue and West 211th Street. Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 207th Street. Transfers available to the 1 train, BX12, BX12 SBS, BXM1, BXM2 and BX7. This stop is 10th Avenue and West 207th Street. Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 204th Street. This stop is 10th Avenue and West 204th Street. Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 202nd Street. This stop is 10th Avenue and West 202nd Street. Next stop, Dickman Street and 10th Avenue. This stop is Dickman Street and 10th Avenue. Next stop, Dickman Street and Nagel Avenue. This stop is Dickman Street and Nagel Avenue. Next stop, Dickman Street and Sherman Avenue. Transfers available to the 8 train, BXM1 and BXM2. This stop is Dickman Street and Sherman Avenue. Next stop, Broadway and Riverside Drive. This stop is Broadway and Riverside Drive. Next stop, Broadway and Duncan Place. Transfer available to BX7. This stop is Broadway and Duncan Place. Next stop, Broadway and Sherman Avenue. This stop is Broadway and Sherman Avenue. Next stop, Broadway and Bennett Avenue. This stop is Broadway and Bennett Avenue. Next stop, Broadway and West 192nd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 192nd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 190th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 190th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 189th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 189th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 187th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 187th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 185th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 185th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 181st Street. Transfers available to the 1 train, M4, M4 Limited, M5 and M5 Limited. This stop is Broadway and West 181st Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 178th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 178th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 176th Street. Transfers available to New Jersey Transit, BX11, BX35, BX36, BX36 Limited, BX7, M4, M4 Limited, M5 and M5 Limited. This stop is Broadway and West 176th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 174th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 174th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 172nd Street. This stop is Broadway and West 172nd Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 170th Street. This stop is Broadway and West 170th Street. Next stop, Broadway and West 168th Street. Transfers available to the 1, A and C trains, BX11, BX35, BX7, M2, M2 Limited, M4, M4 Limited, M5 and M5 Limited. This stop is Broadway and West 168th Street. Next stop, West 166th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. Transfers available to BX7, M4, M4 Limited, M5, M5 Limited, M2 and M2 Limited. This stop is West 166th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. Next stop, St. Nicholas Avenue and West 164th Street. This stop is St. Nicholas Avenue and West 164th Street. Next stop, St. Nicholas Avenue and West 162nd Street. This stop is St. Nicholas Avenue and West 162nd Street. Next stop, St. Nicholas Avenue and West 158th Street. This stop is St. Nicholas Avenue and West 158th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 156th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 156th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 152nd Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 152nd Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 150th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 150th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 148th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 148th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 145th Street. Transfers available to BX19, M101 and M101 Limited. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 145th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 143rd Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 143rd Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 140th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 140th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 138th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 138th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 136th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 136th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 135th Street. Transfer available to M11. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 135th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 134th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 134th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 131st Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 131st Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 129th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 129th Street. Next stop, Amsterdam Avenue and West 126th Street. This stop is Amsterdam Avenue and West 126th Street. Next stop, West 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. This stop is West 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. Next stop, West 125th Street and Morningside Avenue. Transfer available to M104. This stop is West 125th Street and Morningside Avenue. Next stop, West 125th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. Transfers available to the A, B, C and D trains, M60 SBS, BX15, BX15 Limited and M3. This stop is West 125th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. Next stop, West 125th Street and Fred Douglass Boulevard. Transfer available to M10. This stop is West 125th Street and Fred Douglass Boulevard. Next stop, West 125th Street and Adam C. Powell Boulevard. Transfers available to M2 and M2 Limited. This stop is West 125th Street and Adam C. Powell Boulevard. Next stop, West 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. Transfers available to the 2 and 3 trains, M102 and M7. This stop is West 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. Next stop, East 125th Street and 5th Avenue. Transfer available to M1. This stop is East 125th Street and 5th Avenue. Next stop, East 125th Street and Madison Avenue. Transfer available to M1. This stop is East 125th Street and Madison Avenue. Next stop, East 125th Street and Park Avenue. Transfers available to Metro North and M98 Limited. This stop is East 125th Street and Park Avenue. Next stop, East 125th Street and Lexington Avenue. Transfers available to the 4, 5 and 6 trains, M35, M103, M101 and M101 Limited. This stop is East 125th Street and Lexington Avenue. Next stop, 3rd Avenue and East 125th Street. Transfers available to M101, M101 Limited, BX15, BX15 Limited, M98 Limited, M60 SBS, M103 and M100. This stop is 3rd Avenue and East 125th Street. Next stop, East 127th Street and 2nd Avenue. Transfers available to BX99, BX15, BX15 Limited, M15, M15 SBS, M60 SBS, M35 and BXM10. This stop is East 127th Street and 2nd Avenue. This is M100 to East Harlem 2nd Avenue 127th Street. This is M100 to Inwood 220th Street. Please exit through the rear door.